Hello there, Tim. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Fantastic, fantastic. Good to finally get to meet you. We've spoken a couple of brief times on the phone, and this is the first time we actually get to sit down and kind of discuss a little bit about what's going on. I've taken extensive look at your website at this point. Oh yeah, I've looked over the whole thing, looked over the
Okay,
prospectus,
great.
passed that off to the team. Now, like I think I sent you an email on that. Now the team did
You
say they,
did. You did. Yep.
yeah,
No,
yeah, yeah,
no
yeah.
problem. It's not a fit.
But
Whatever.
super freaking cool though. Super freaking cool, and that's one of the reasons I was really, glad that you signed up to talk to me. So, Tim, please tell me a little bit about yourself and what you got going on.
Well, we got some cool stuff going on. I was always interested in agriculture type of stuff. Grew up on a farm in the Midwest, a long way from here. Got mixed up in fixing stuff, learning about equipment and machines. And had quite a farm with everything on it, but grew up in that age when all this stuff was manual, right? A little bit of equipment and a lot of manual, and everything started to automate. Just loved the whole stuff. So I went off to be a mechanical engineer, and I tell people, you know what? I became a mechanical engineer before I knew what one was, but then I figured out the next step. So anyhow, I got a chance. I worked in different companies, worked with ITW, but a few years back, I was looking for that next opportunity. I've done a few startups, and I love solar. Had always watched solar, never figured out how I could make any money off of it, or that it could grow. And it seemed to be catching some headwind. And I reached out to somebody that was working in the solar industry
Yeah, please.
and said I was looking to start a manufacturing engineering company. And he threw out several ideas, and this one just stuck with me. It's like, okay, it's kind of ag related, it's equipment, electrical, software, hard to do, nichey. But of course, then you got to do it. You got to go look and see if the business is big enough. Can I make $1 billion company? Okay, it's got to be at least that, right? And then you got to look at, does the technology, is it really mature enough to do something like this, right? And
Sure.
so did that, and after about 2 months of analysis, I said, "This is interesting. Let's grab this niche and go after it." Knowing my complete ignorance is an important part of entrepreneurialism, because if you don't have that, you just won't do it. You'll go take a job somewhere, right?
That's it. Start now. Act now. I tell people every day, you're never ready. You never have all of the pieces of the puzzle. You never have enough money. You never have the right team. You never have it all when you decide to push the button. Sometimes it's just time to push the button and go.
That is right. And so we started developing a team. That was in 2018. Started putting a team together, and I got lucky. Maybe I was in the right place to have Southwest Research kind of around the corner, and several people were working on the autonomous vehicle programs, and
Great.
we're kind of ready to take a change. So I got that opportunity to kind of pull some people, and really get them working on our stuff, and figuring out next steps. And I got some good dedicated people. It's funny, you start a business with the right ideas in mind, the right effort, giving people the right let me see, the right motivations, and you don't it's not like we could pay everybody really well. It's not like we could do everything amazing, give them the bonuses 10 years ahead of time. No, we started with very little, got it working. But that most of that team is still here today
Love
because
it.
they love what they're doing. They're doing something pretty incredible. So we got things rolling along. Got some first prototypes. This was a real weld it in my garage story, because I did build the first machine, welded it up in the garage, in my garage at home, and there's still paint on the floor that my wife is still not happy with, but it's still there 5 years later, from
Wow.
painting stuff. And but we've come a long way from then. Of course, we went through a Model 2, then a Model 3. That's what we're putting in the field now. Kind of looking at what a Model 4 would be, but it's really, the Model 3 has been really, really good. A lot of learning things from it. We've got about 100 units in the field. Um, we we found a neat niche in solar, and solar is growing heavily. And so if you look at today, there's about 1 million acres under solar panels, maybe a little bit more. By 2035, I think we'll see about 6 million acres. The energy infrastructure is probably going to be about 15 million acres.
So what
So,
kind of data are you able to collect through this, or are you able to collect data?
yeah, and you hit right on the sweet spot of what this is. People say, "Oh, you got more," and it's like, no, we mow. It's actually a roving high electric power vehicle, right? So we
Sure.
we can with data collection, information processing. So we've got lidar on it, we've got cameras, we can go look at stuff, collect information, bring it back, send it home, store it in the cloud. So we've got all that piece to it, and we just happen to mow grass because it's the most difficult thing for them, and it makes the most money, and it's the biggest part of the operational expenses for these many of these solar sites. So hey,
Sure.
why not grass first, and then we'll look at panels, tell them which ones have failed, and we'll look at the serial number and tell them where it's at, and
That's
we'll look for
cool.
wires down, and then we'll spray around posts, and then we'll do a bunch of other things. So yeah, it's got a huge amount of potential for analyzing the environment, what's going on, and then bringing the information back and providing that to the customers.
Sure. Even security measures. I mean, it's a
Absolutely.
guard dog too.
Well, security, and we already are putting in 3D scanning software to create digital twins with that, so that we can analyze every time we go past a fence. Right? Has anything changed? Has anything changed? Has anything changed?
Oh wow.
So,
Wow, this is super
um,
advanced. Super advanced stuff. Love it. Love to hear this kind of stuff. Oh, I'm a geek too, I promise.
well,
Oh yeah.
no doubt. Sounds like you've been around that whole world for a
Oh, I
while.
love it, man. I love finding the different ways that people have figured out to generate an income. And look,
Yeah,
you're building a robot, like which is every little boy's dream. You built a robot, and these robots make you money and talk back to you. They go out there and find the information and tell you. That's what we all wanted when we were like 9 years old. Every single one of
yeah,
us.
yeah, yeah.
So
I
yeah, you
mean,
get to do it full time now for a living. That's amazing. That's amazing.
yep,
Now, when we spoke, you when we first spoke, you were telling me that you were in another series of fundraising. Can you tell me
yep.
a little bit about that process? How that's been going for you? What's happening with that? I'd love to know.
Yeah, yeah. So the capital raise processes, there's a lot to it. We've raised 12.5 million so far. Another 6.5 through grants, um, and we've got revenue and other stuff. So this year we're working on a capital raise. We we were weeding through, coming to the end, and we had people still interested in being the lead, and we were trying to get there in third quarter and fourth quarter. You know what happened? Everybody got tight, and nobody wanted to put any money anywhere. We had the lowest amount of capital put in place since 2008
Sure.
around the venture world, and IPOs went to almost nothing. And so, what do? We figure out how to make it to the next step, and so we're kind of rebuilding. I got a couple of guys helping me that are pretty bright fellows, working on setting up the next raise campaign, and we'll start that in January.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. I'm glad to hear that you're having success, even if there's some hurdles, that have to be overcome here and there. And
Well, and a lot of people got nervous, and they talked recession for 2 years, right? And so they're
sure.
starting to, and then the interest rates were going crazy. So people got conservative and realized, hey, we can live without spending for a little while. So
Sure.
I think we'll see some softening up in that next year.
Oh, I do too. I do too. I say come March, we'll start rocking along like it's supposed to all the way to May, and then it's going to be a little stagnant till about September. And guess what? It's election year. So there's going to
Yeah,
be a little bit of upheaval, right? It's going to rise a little bit, do some good stuff. And then you're going to do one or the other from then till December, right? Because you don't know which way you're going to go with your election there. You
yep,
don't know what's happening. Uh, January's always dead. January's dead. Everybody's recovering. That's what's happening. Everybody closed out their end of the year books. New books are starting off. There's nothing to show yet. Come mid February to March, we start to ramp up again. It's just the way it
yep.
goes. Yeah, it's the way of the beast, man. It's been going on, historically for 100 years like that.
That's right. That is
So,
right.
Well, I tell you what. Let me hear a little bit more about the human being of Tim. Of Tim, who is Tim that runs this? What makes you want to do these things?
Well, I was pretty driven early on. I'll probably tell you more than you want to hear. How about that? So
Please.
I mean, I was the young guy that was taking everything apart, and growing up on a farm, there was lots of stuff to take apart
Sure.
until you were old enough to start to maybe put things back together. I remember telling my dad one time, going, "Hey," he asked me, "Hey, what do you want to be when you grow up?" And I was probably like fourth or fifth grade, and I said, "A mechanic." And he goes, "What about a mechanical engineer?" And I had no idea what one was, but it was pretty well after sixth grade, I decided I was going to be a mechanical engineer, and I went off and actually did that. But so I got involved in a lot of different things earlier, and I worked for Illinois Toolworks. Uh, it was actually the first company was Miller Electric. So if you ever seen a blue welder or generator in the back of a truck,
Yep.
I probably had something to do with the design on there. So I worked for that company, and I got my first shot. Illinois Toolworks bought Miller Electric. I got my first shot to start up a company, and it happened, not necessarily naturally, because I was doing mechanical engineering work. It was good. Started working on my MBA, and Illinois Toolworks came in and bought this company for about 300 million. And one of the executives came to me and said, "Well, we're looking at this business, and the guy's ready to retire." And he goes, "We need somebody to take a look at it. You want to take a look at it?" It's like, okay, I guess I'll take a look at it. And it was like nobody. It was also one of those areas that nobody wanted to touch it, right? And it's like, okay, I'll take a look at it. So,
Right.
what it was is plasma cutting. And so I said, well, let me take a look at it. So I took a look, studied the technology and what we needed to do for the business and everything else, and said, hey, I happen to be working on my MBA, so I'm kind of doing some analysis along while I'm trying to learn how to do that. And I said, hey, this looks like it's worthwhile. I put together some plans, and we kicked it off, and I put some relationships together with some big companies, and I started that business and grew it up to about $15 million within a large company. So it was
Yeah.
like, oh, that was my first start. And then I ran the R&D for the company, for Miller Electric, which, hey, was great. I got a chance to kind of manage a bunch of techies and doing a bunch of cool stuff. And we dealt with, welding equipment, robotics, and DSPs and stuff early on. But it was a great learning lesson and then I moved down to San Antonio in 2002.
Oh, so
Left
this
Miller.
wasn't all here. This wasn't here. None of this didn't
No,
start
that
here.
was all up in Wisconsin.
Ah, okay,
So yeah,
okay.
so 2002, moved down here. Uh, Wife and family down. She got a job down at USAA,
Yeah.
and so, but I had a chance to kind of do some other things. So I did a few startups, some not so successful, some were better. I had one in oil and gas. I sold that, which was interesting. Oil was like $118 a barrel, and I sold it. Within 6 months, it was $18 a barrel. Uh, I was so glad to get out of that one. It was
Yeah,
like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And I knew it was going there, right? I knew it was going there. It's
sure.
like, hey, I had a lot of money into that company,
I
but
love it.
this was so I did some other things in marketing and other things, but this company really resonated with me because I love solar. I'd been messing with it, did experiments in solar heating and other stuff. It has that ag component, as I mentioned earlier. I'm a farmer in Minnesota yet. I've got my brothers and I have farmland up there. We farm wind and corn and soybeans.
Nice,
One
nice.
brother farms it. But I got that ag love piece. So today we're mowing grass. My future in that is we're going to be farming underneath those solar panels.
Sure.
So today there's about 893 million acres in farmland. But if we get it, if we get to 7, 8 million in solar, and it might grow beyond that.
Sure.
People say sometimes, hey, you're going to take away the good farmland. It's not even close. Did you know today, 45% of the corn produced in the U.S. goes into making alcohol
Wow.
for putting in gasoline?
Wow.
So we're already using it for energy.
Sure.
Making solar is an interesting and better way to do it. And if we farm underneath it too, even if it's hay or other crops, we'll figure out how to do that. And we'll do it with robotics.
Sure. No, I love it. I love it. My wife and I own a small little farm as well, a little pastured pork operation. And you're seeing corn
Yep.
and soybeans and everything. That's what we're feeding.
Yeah, absolutely.
So no,
And so here's another interesting thing that we are doing already. So we've got pretty tied in the military for grant money, and that's been very good. And so we're developing some things that work with. It's all maintenance related. It's not war related. It's maintenance. Mowing grass, working on runways,
Sure.
hooking things up, moving tool carts around, looking for FOD on runways, those type of things. A lot of interesting stuff. But one of the things we're doing is we're making a system run off of hydrogen.
Great.
So we're looking. So you think about electricity. There's always the limitations. Even some of the reasons we're not moving faster with electricity in vehicles today, it's because of the complications around electric, right? You can't get the distance. You don't have enough power. You can't charge fast enough. Well, hydrogen has a way of being green and eliminating a lot of that. So we're actually working on a project to do that in that case. And the reason I really wanted to go there is because you don't know if will battery technology change a lot to really solve the whole issue of enough power fast enough? Because plowing or disking or doing some farm applications would be very tough with just batteries.
Sure.
I mean, when my brother puts his tractor in the field and he takes off, he could be pulling 500 horsepower for 8 hours straight.
Right.
That's a lot of power. There's no battery that I'm aware of that's going to do that for you.
No.
Make that happen. But hydrogen could do that, right? So you could put hydrogen in a machine and keep it operating, and it could be green, and you could be producing that all year long. So another way to do it. My goal long term is, how do we take carbon fuels away from farming and put a sustainable farming in place without the fossil fuels? We're still going to farm. We still need the food, right?
Sure.
It can be done.
I love it. I love the plan. Love the plan. Now I've got to ask you. So it sounds like the majority of your career was corporatized. You were working for other companies doing this stuff, and then when you went off, this is yours though. This company's your company. This is your baby.
Yep.
Okay.
This is my baby.
So
and I had several other companies I did, but this is my baby. I have investors, but yeah, I started this as the founder, put it together. Worked on it, got it going, got my team in place, and moved it forward.
So was this your first attempt at capital raising on your own, or had you ever
It
done it
was.
with some of the other companies?
So anytime I had done it before, either I used my own capital or I had large corporate capital, right? Where you just go make a pitch to the executive team and they say yes or no, and life moves on.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love the fact. So how did that work for you? I mean, you just had the corporate connections over the years, so you were able to, you had those first, second, and third connections to pitch to, the first time. And the reason I ask this is I have students that ask me this. And I'm telling you, one of the first things that I always instruct them to do, some of them are 15, 16 years old, and some of them are 50. And what I tell them all to do, go down your phone list, go down your email list, go down your social media list, and get every damn person that you've got, and never get rid of them. Those are your connections from life, and nurture your relationships. So I'm wondering, is that kind of how you went about that?
That's a really good question. And I'm going to answer first that there is no bad way to raise capital if you're successful at the end, right? So but there are better ways to raise capital. I still don't have venture capital in my business. Sure. It was always all private. And so we worked to talk to people that were in the industry that kind of were aware of the problems that existed in this market. Sure. We took in some capital earlier. We used options to pay people earlier and shares to kind of bootstrap ourselves and get us going.
Right.
And then we kept working the connections. It's kept working the connections throughout industry. Where's a connection? Sure. Who could be good? Who knows this industry? Who could help? Who could be a good testament for us? Sure. And we got connected to a couple. I would say that it's a plus or minus. You can look back and say, hey, I should have had venture capital early on. The reason these do that is because the venture capital early on can help you find more capital as you need it. So they become that partner in doing it, and they have the connections across other groups.
Sure.
Now, I also hear the negative where the venture capital might just say one day, that sounds good until the one day where, oh, we're not putting another dollar in this, bye. And that can happen too. So you've got the plus or minuses. So even though you might be completely in belief of what you're doing, they still might turn the corner and go somewhere else. And they're fine chopping off their capital and going, okay, we're done. We're going to go put in another company.
Right.
Because
it makes sense financially for them. Sure.
That's how they operate, right? It's like we put money in a whole bunch of places, knowing one's going to really win or two, and some are going to do okay, and some are going to fail. So That's how they do it. Where other investors, private investors, have a hard time letting it go, right? So they really want it to succeed in making it work because they still care about that money, and they're going to watch it. It doesn't mean they're going to invest more, but it does mean, and they're less likely to probably be that big partner to help you get more relationships and get more investment dollars in.
Sure.
I've got a bunch of people that threw some money in early on. I did some of it myself. I've got some of the people in the company that threw some money in a place, got it moving along. We got some sales to roll some more in. Then we actually made a connection to a guy that is out of Kodiak, Alaska. Really interesting fella. Worked his family did fishing and had fishing trawlers, and they did crabbing and stuff like that. We connected through a guy who's on our board of directors, and he had a neighbor that worked for this guy out of Kodiak, Alaska. And so if you ever seen some of those fishing shows up in the Bering Seas, he probably owns the fishing rights. And if you saw like the Gold Rush show, he owns some of the gold rights. So I talked to this guy, and got a conversation with him, and he kind of listened, asked a couple questions. It's like, I'm sitting this in December, and we're really needing some cash infusion.
Sure.
And he's a little hard of hearing on his computer, and he kind of leans over and goes, well, you just want me to wire the money into your account? Said, yeah, that would be fine.
Yeah, that would be fine. I love it. That's amazing.
On December 31st of that year, he wired $3 million into my account. So that felt pretty good.
Sure. Now, I've got to ask you on that, how long was that conversation, or how many touches did it take between you and that gentleman before he said yes to a $3 million deal? Now, and also, was that from a cold introduction, or did you know the guy?
So, no, it was warmer introduction than that, because the person that's on our board knew a guy that really works for him and had worked with him for a lot of years, and so it was warm there.
Okay.
But it was the first connection I had met this guy, the investor, and he made that decision and wired the money. So good. But the warming up helps, right? You got to figure that out, because he wouldn't have done it without his cohort saying, "Hey, this seems like a pretty good opportunity. Take a look at it," and he brought him into the conversation. So, that was good.
Yeah, that always makes a difference. That's why I wanted to ask that question. Most of the people that we come across, it is the first time. Capital raising. You're coming across people for the very first time, and it is a cold introduction period. And sometimes the scripts that we work out are good enough that you get the yes on that first conversation. But a lot of times, it does take multiple touches. And when you do have that warmer introduction, when you've got second and third connections, to have a little bit of something from a relationship built on a rapport, a little bit of belief, from the other person, it really does go a long way. So it's nice to hear that from another person. So, well, I'll tell you what, I've kept you on here for a half an hour. Really, I just wanted to know exactly what it is that you do face to face, because I've read the website. I've missed you twice having good conversations with you. I wanted to kind of pick your brain. I wanted to do a little somewhat of an interview so that I could throw this out for social media and let people know what's going on with your company as well, by the way. And it kind of helps us all. Hell, we're all local, and everything that I do is marketed locally anyway. So if nothing else, it gets people to know who you are that wouldn't have known, and That's kind of the idea. So, and we get to figure out who we are, and maybe one day we get to do some things together too.
Sounds like a good plan.
Definitely so. Now, I've got to ask you,
that.
before I get off of here, I've got to ask you if there were two different types of people that I could introduce you to, who would they be? Or what type of person would that be?
So I always look for people that can help us improve our business. It could be either on the investment side, but I mean could be strategic business people that could help us grow. I mean that could be an opportunity. We are very connected to solar and energy, so people that are in there and have some sway and have interest could be good. Okay. I am going to be looking for somebody to really head up our sales area. So I'm looking for that high-end guy that really wants to drive strategy on the sales side.
Sure.
We've got some good people we're going to add to that team pretty soon here. So, if we see people out there that would be interested in, hey, they got a great experience, done some great things, had good teams working for them, but want to make a move and do something in a pretty cool market, this could be interesting.
Okay. Now, out of all of that, I had one person that did pop to mind, into mind. And what he does is he is a marketing company for funds. He makes sure that you get funded, basically. I do know that he works on a performance basis, and he will also work with equity shares as well. So, would you want that introduction?
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
okay.
Sure.
I'll do like a three-way email or something and say, hey, this is Tim. He's local, and I know that he's interested in possibly doing something with you or knowing more about how you help people in his situation. Something like
Sounds
that.
Sounds good.
Okay, good. Well, Tim, is there anything that I can answer for you, or is there anything you just want to shoot the shit about before we get off of here?
Hey, I just, I know you talk about doing some investing, but you have a show, right? You just kind of do a podcast type of thing, or what?
We do a lot of things, actually. I do a Twitter space. I do YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Some of it I organize into an actual kind of podcast space. Some of it I just do on YouTube that kind of come out as more of the interview conversation style pieces. More of that is just to have the stuff documented. And to have the links and have it out there because that stuff's forever. Now, what I actually do is acquisition entrepreneurship. I buy and sell businesses. Here about 3 years ago, I started a decentralized group with crypto and NFTs. Regular people from all over the world to get together to throw money together and start buying some businesses. It worked. We did a small raise, and when I say small raise, I'm talking like $100,000. Okay, nothing. $100,000 worth of crypto between 1,000 and some odd people. So and that in turn turned into a centralized organization where that's what we do. It's still on the small scale, just like when I reached out to you. We're looking for somewhere between the 1 and 5 million area. When it goes above that, we really have a hard time with the team that we have in place doing anything to scale after that because we're just not there. So that's kind of where we're at with all of that, and we just keep on rolling. Over the last 3.5 years, it's been almost 36 businesses in full, acquiring, building, scaling, merging, and a couple of little startups too. Most of them are either still going or just closed down really, really quickly. You know how those go. Right. Yep. Well, we started an axe company in 2021 that lasted about 3 months. One of those kind of deals that, thank God, it was a mobile unit and it just didn't happen.
Yeah.
So, anyhow, that's kind of what we do. And when I send things out in the emails talking about the investment group, really we look for unaccredited investors, regular old Joe that is looking to put his little bit somewhere to make it more. We don't really deal with accredited investors. We don't deal with anything over about $100,000 worth of an investment because we specifically built it for average Joe. There's enough funds out there that do other things, and they also promise different types of returns. Now, one thing I can say is we've been pretty successful with an 80% distribution of profit every single quarter since we launched. That's not so bad. That's pretty darn good.
That's not bad.
It's also a smaller amount too. It's not like we're dealing with huge exorbitant amounts. So eventually one day it'll be there. For now, we're just growing and going and enjoying it. And I think all total, how many members do we have, darling? I don't know, probably 30, 40 members. And that's it. 30 or 40 members, small little group. But that's what we do, Tim.
Fantastic. Well, glad to hear about it.
Yes,
glad to meet you.
Hey, it was good to meet you. Great to hear about what you do. I've got your website links. Are there any other links that you would want me to share?
No, I think the website's good.
Okay.
At this point.
All right. Well, thank you for your time. I appreciate you, good sir.
You bet.
Look forward to talking to you back in. Have a good day.
Bye-bye.